Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, welcome back to the good show, my good friend.
Thank you for having me back to the good show, my friend.
How you doing today?
I'm good. Very excited to have our guest on. There was going to be a disclaimer that we hit about 73 times during the show that we're recording this Thursday morning, January 8th. So if DeMond Williams becomes a Alouette,
New York Jet, hey!
I don't know. Then this is taped in advance, and I think we're going to focus a lot on like, hey, how are like the vibes in the portal this year, rather than like give us an exact thought on this player, at Michigan State or wherever. So very excited to have Max Olson on. Very excited to be back. Has been kind of a bummer of a portal year with the DeMond Williams stuff, but it's also an interesting portal year all over the place. It's still a very active quarterback market at the time of recording. So no, it's all pretty fascinating right now. I'm excited.
We are going to be talking with Max Olson of ESPN.com about all things transfer portal, as Dan said. Going to focus a little bit more on vibes, on the overall structure, how it's different this year than the last. And of course, we will talk about some of the players as well.
Yeah.
One more disclaimer, recording this early on Thursday morning. We didn't want to put it out before the playoff because then everybody cares about the playoff and people don't listen as much to this. And we're really into it. So this is dropping for most folks on Sunday. Of course, if you are out on our Patreon, might get a little bit early and without the ads. One more time, going out to verballers.com if you're interested in supporting the team and getting some of those perks. As we have mentioned here, this is not an episode in which we are going to talk about the college football playoff. Go back. You can listen to some of the episodes that we did to run back through what transpired in both of those semifinal matchups. But today's focus is very much the transfer portal with our good friend Max Olson. Dan, let's just dive right the F in.
Let's go.
All right, Dan, let's do it. Let's bring him back. We did this episode a year ago. We're going to do it again now. It is our good friend Max Olson from ESPN, where he covers national college football as well as the transfer portal. Max, welcome back. How is your sleep right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, we got a 7-month-old too, so that plays into the day-to-day of it. Pretty good last night, though. Pretty good I don't want to say the portal is starting to settle down because it's absolutely not, but we got some sleep last night.
Right. Did you see the Tosh Lupoy quote, by the way?
I did.
Where I don't know if you saw this, Ty. It felt very accurate. Where somebody asked him about like what it's like juggling the portal and Cal responsibilities and Oregon responsibilities. Like, oh, it's so great that the portal's this week. It's the best. I love getting 2 hours of sleep. I love doing all this work. The timing couldn't be better. They nailed this. It was great.
I saw some pictures of my guy Will Stein and many people pointing out how exhausted he looks and. Mm-hmm. I think it's a fair read of the situation, I think, for a lot of us that are mired in this.
The college football calendar has definitely been a point of contention. I should add before we go any further, we're recording this on Thursday morning. So by the time people end up hearing this, I think around Sunday morning or so, there are obviously going to be some news tidbits in the portal world that change and break between now and then, like 72 hours from now, right? So just give us the grace of understanding that up front if you are listening to this.
Max, do you want to record at 5 a.m. Sunday morning to just as an addendum to everything we record right now? Is that I don't think I mentioned that, but I think we should.
We should just get together and just do a bunch of little clips that you can just sort of drop into this file that that sound completely natural.
Record some voice memos on your phone and just keep shipping them off to Ty. It's great.
That's a good idea.
That's it. That's it. What I was going to ask, though, was about the college football calendar, right? They made some changes. There's one portal window as opposed to two previously. The calendar is still very much a hot button issue among college football fans, people who talk about college football, teams, players, coaches, you name it. How has this calendar looked from your perspective? The current setup that we have right now, the portal opened on January the 2nd and is still running now until January the 16th. From your vantage point as somebody who covers this, how has it impacted? How has it not impacted just the overall structure around the portal?
Well, first of all, I think you have to talk about it within the context of the whole schedule. My wife's birthday is January 20th. I don't think the college football season should go till January 20th, right? Or 18th or whatever it is.
Okay.
So I join these coaches in that, like, I would love to see this thing start week 0 or earlier, and for the whole football season to end earlier than where it does now. So I think that would help fix things a little bit. But for now, what we have is the coaches primarily wanted to move the transfer portal from December to January and open it up on January 2nd after the quarterfinals. And I think for the coaches, really the big win in this reform was eliminating the spring transfer portal window and just saying, hey, we're going to do this all in one shot, and it's 2 weeks. And they even in going to 2 weeks, that's reduced from what it was a year ago, right? And so I think they view that as a win in terms of like roster stability and just trying to get this all done in once, and then especially not having to sign guys in January to deals, and then those guys come back to you in April and say, oops, it's going to take more money for me to stay at this school. And so that's the thing that's obviously been going on for years. And, right. You've seen repeat transfers and you've seen a lot of those issues. And so the coaches wanted to eliminate that. Now, did moving the portal to January 2nd, really move all the transfer activity to January? Absolutely not. I mean, I think that you've seen in talking to personnel people, first of all, everyone has more sophisticated operations now. These front offices are evaluating their opponents' rosters starting in September. Okay. You could talk to GMs in October, mid-season, and they'd be like, hey, here's 10 guys I want to go get. They already know how they want to attack it. And the way it's set up now where everybody has agents, the GM, the agent are just talking all year long and saying, hey, we like this guy. What would it cost? Those conversations are happening well before January. And so did we really delay all of this stuff? Not really, because at the end of November, you still have players that are trying to leave their programs. And throughout December, you're having these re-signings. And as you guys saw, everyone's just announcing they plan to enter the portal throughout the month of December. All these deals are going on behind the scenes. You can't take official visits, but you're lining up where you're going to go when the portal opens. And so you have all that activity before. So it's the portal didn't open until January, but a lot of stuff happened in December still. And then you have a very compressed timeline once the portal opens on January 2nd. There are some of these schools that have to get these guys in within a week and get them on campus. And so it's very fast. They're in, you get them on the visit. You hope to get them just committed and signed on the first visit and get them locked up. And so you're seeing every day just hundreds and hundreds of commitments as these guys fly off the board. And so it's a very fast process. I think that's challenging for coaches. It's challenging for agents and families. And hopefully people are making really good decisions that they can stand by, because again, there is no spring portal to fix this.
What is the organizational structure behind the scenes? Obviously, you mentioned the playoff teams that, coaches have new jobs or whatever, that are, Kurt Cignetti's hosting and getting commitments while prepping for Oregon and vice versa. But of the most stable teams, or even the playoff teams, the organizational structure of, okay, we want these guys. Let's talk behind the scenes to representatives to get a feel for how likely they are to stay or go. Is it literally, are there walls in recruiting offices that are like a temperature gauge of players they want, hot, warm, tepid, cold, in terms of the likelihood and, perceived interest? Is that how we're actually categorizing the potential transfers around this sport?
Well, as we've seen in the last decade, if you're going to build out an army of a recruiting staff behind the scenes, then of course that's what they're going to do over the course of the year with their all their Google Docs that they're sharing with each other. They're going to go through and really make their board. And it's not just high school now; it's everybody. And I think that's the thing that's challenging for recruiting. It's challenging to cover the stuff. It's just the NFL. Obviously, every year whose contract is up, and in college football, anybody is attainable, it seems like right now, for the right price, right? And so, you are evaluating everybody and trying to, when you have more than 5,000 Division I players in the portal right now, and that number is going to keep growing, there's a lot of good ones that could fit you. And so you have to be great at evaluating. I know everyone focuses on the money right now, but you still have to be great at the evaluation and the actual execution of the recruitment. And so, I think the front offices I think you're seeing the structure now a little bit more. There's always been, the director of player personnel and the folks below them who evaluate the players, who do the recruiting. But now I think you've seen the GM title has become obviously very popular over the last year. And I think a big part of that is having the person who is the contact, the go-between on working with the agents and on, many of these GMs, they're highly involved in the actual contract negotiation. Some schools have someone that handles contracts and the legal piece of it. But really it is the GM role right now is you are working the phones every day and trying to, line up these deals, line up these visits. And so they're working in collaboration with their recruiting department in terms of who they want to go after. Obviously, you're working with the coaches too, but you're seeing just these front offices get more influence in terms of who they want to go after. I talked to a GM at a Big 12 school last week who said his record so far, this was a few days ago, so maybe it's changed, but his record so far was 173 phone calls in one day. So that
sounds awful,
yes, it does,
Max.
It does. And again, maybe some of these folks look at this as like, well, at least it's only 14 days this time. There's also an element of this that I think it's part of like why people enjoy following this now more than they used to is like, there's just the instant gratification of it, right? Like you can go offer a guy and he can be on your campus tomorrow and he can be signed tomorrow. And so this happens very quickly. And for these people who've been in personnel forever, you're used to the 2-year high school recruitment where you get all the way to the end and then they pick somebody else, right? And so to be able to at least go flip your roster tomorrow, it's exciting, but it's a pretty intense process right now.
Who has done a particularly, I mean, we're still, in a few days in or whatever, who has done a particularly good job that not was unexpected, but came out of, a weird situation, whatever it is. Like we know Texas Tech, we know Indiana, right? These are well-oiled machines. Who has been new savvy this year in terms of GM, in terms of school, in terms of new coach? We were like, wow, they had a plan and they're executing really impressively.
Well, let's start with the guys we already mentioned. I'm really impressed by Cal and I'm really impressed by Kentucky. And part of that, especially when you factor in what's going on in those guys' lives right now and what they're juggling, and they are, legitimately trying to go finish the job here and win a national championship. I think it's very impressive what Will Stein's doing at Kentucky. He gets Sam Levitt in on the visit, and they ultimately flip Kenny Minchie away from Nebraska as their guy at QB when Levitt goes and takes more visits. But they've done a really good job of picking up like pieces to get that thing flipped very quickly with his GM, Pat Biondo, who he brought with him from Oregon. I think Tosh Lupoy, like you are seeing him give like some pretty real legitimacy to Cal right now. And part of that is Jaron, right? Obviously having Jaron back for year 2, they always viewed that as like, pay that guy what it costs, because if you have him, that attracts other players who want to play here, right? And so I've been impressed by the class that Cal has put together. Again, under the circumstances of doing this on the fly, you've barely even probably been on the campus, and yet you're hosting visits and you're trying to put this all together. I think we're in a time right now. Like, obviously, you can touch on it too. Like, the whole like we're putting all of our players on a moving truck and we're going over here. That's a thing. It's a thing this offseason, and I'm fascinated to see what the ROI and the payoff is on that. But you're seeing a lot of programs right now that look at Indiana. Truthfully, they look at Indiana and Kurt Cignetti and the 13 players he brought from James Madison. And I think you talk to agents in November, December, like that was a factor in this stuff now is like, hey, we're interviewing these guys. We're trying to narrow this down. And one of the questions is like, who are you bringing? Like, who can you get here to make us good next year? And so at Penn State and at Oklahoma State and at Auburn and Arkansas to some extent, like all these first year coaches, they are loading up with very familiar guys, and I am curious how that hits you, Ty, as that's been unfolding.
Well, I mean, it's and I've kind of gone back and forth
with the Nittany clones or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with some other Penn Staters about this, and I mean, I'm encouraged by the fact that he seems to be bringing the better players from Iowa State, and so it'll be sort of a hybrid of the talent that he's been able to retain off the Penn State roster, the former Penn State roster from last year, and what he's going to bring over from Iowa State. If it were just sort of like all-encompassing, we're bringing all of Iowa State with, I don't know how I'd feel about that, but I kind of like the combination of the best of what Matt Campbell had before and the best of what I think, or most of the best of what is remaining at Penn State right now. So I hope that works, but it'll be an interesting experiment because certainly it was going to be this way one way or another. I'm pretty familiar with Iowa State because I was a big fan of Iowa State coming into last year. So I think in theory it works. I'm probably a little bit mixed in terms of what it looks like on the field next year, but it's at least a starting point. Given where they were in the high school recruiting trail, that they had, 2 commits out after signing day? You will take what we have seen recently in the portal. I'm okay with that.
It's an interesting conversation. I'm wondering, supply and demand wise, when you look at who has entered the portal, where the money has gone, where the players have gone, where schools have looked, which players and positions seem to have noticeable leverage this cycle? And I guess which players and positions may have, I don't know, maybe overestimated the market.
I think a year ago, you could go out and get a good quarterback in the portal, like a guy who started some games, or you could re-sign your quarterback and bring him back who maybe a guy who's been a starter for a year. You could go and get that guy for about $1.5 million. Okay. And that was viewed as like, man, it's a lot of money, but like, we feel good about it. This offseason, talking to personnel people, that conversation started at like 3, and that it jumped up. And if you've got a multi-year starter, it costs what it costs. Like and that's not that. Even if you love your quarterback, that puts some of these schools in a difficult position because we've got the money. Yeah, we want to resign him. We want to be back. But as you're going through this in December and you're getting ready for the portal, it's like, well, we need to go get a dozen other players. Like you can get a lot of players for $3 million, right? I mean, maybe not that many anymore, but like it put some of these schools in a tough spot of like, okay, maybe it's not the worst thing if some of these guys walk because we can get a cheaper replacement, and we need that jump for like the middle class program was tough. And then at the top of the market, I mean, the reality is that Brendan Sorsby was worth $5 to $6 million, and that's not just because it's Texas Tech. He was worth that to the rest of the schools that were recruiting him, and I think that is the case right now for the top of the market.
Right,
that you can get $4 or $5 million and maybe more. I think so. You expect that. You expect the franchise quarterback in this sport, the guy who's returning. Brandon Sorsby is a guy who was debating going pro, and I think could have been a day 2 pick, and now has a chance at Texas Tech to play his way maybe into being a first round pick next year. As far as the other positions, I mean, offensive tackles. I can't tell you how many times an agent told me like this offensive tackle is going to go in because he's getting promised $1 million from somebody. Like I assume. Hopefully most of them did get that. Edge rushers, obviously, you hear a bunch of edge rushers, pass rushers who can get $1 to $2 million. I think that's pretty commonplace, as you'd expect with just the way people break this stuff up. It's been interesting to watch running back, though, lately. And I think part of that is you've just got some very high-profile players that people are fighting over. So you had Kewan Lacey re-signing with Ole Miss, and re-signing with Ole Miss for a lot of money because he had a big offer on the table from LSU. It is what it is. He wasn't in the portal, but obviously the plan for Lane Kiffin and Kevin Smith was for Kewan Lacey to go with them to LSU. And so it cost money to win those battles. Same with Isaac Brown. Louisville kept him out of the transfer portal after he declared he was going to go in the portal. He had schools like Texas and Notre Dame on him, and they paid what they had to pay to keep him. Jaden bought Florida. A lot of schools, LSU and Texas and all these schools fighting for him, even though he wasn't in the portal. So remember a few years ago, Quinshon Judkins goes in the portal from Ole Miss, and it's a very premium player. We don't see that very often for like just a all-America caliber running back to go in the portal. And I remember people kind of being like, $1 million for Quinshon Judkins. Like, I don't know about that. Like, that's not what they would do in the NFL. Like, that doesn't make sense. He goes to Ohio State and wins a national championship. This year, there's running backs where it's just like, I mean, we'll pay him $2 million if we have to. We'll pay him $3 million if we have to. Like, I think that is a jump. It takes it, only for the superstars, right? Only for the top of the list. But you notice that a little bit, and that's challenging for some schools here. Again, in a position where you don't want to spend a ton of money.
You mentioned Lane Kiffin. How do we grade out what the Portal King is doing at LSU? There was a gigantic circus that preceded him actually signing on the dotted line. Now he's there. He's been hosting Sam Levitt courtside. I mean, we've heard pretty much LSU in the mix for most of these big name guys that we've been tracking. How would you grade out the job that he has done in very short order in Baton Rouge?
They've done, in terms of the commit list so far, again, we're taping this Thursday morning, looks really good on paper. I think certainly for Lane Kiffin, man, you would have loved it if Ole Miss season had ended a few weeks ago, right? And you'd have it. Those guys would all, be making moves. A lot of those guys would be, strongly considering making moves and potentially going with him to LSU. And I think the fact that this season has extended for Ole Miss has really made it, I think, easier for this to have this positive momentum, and for everybody rallying around Pete Golding, for Walker Jones and for the leadership at Ole Miss to be able to go to these guys and say, like, hey, let's run it back. Like, we'll pay you what we got to pay you, but let's re-sign. And a lot of big name players have re-signed to stay at Ole Miss, and so obviously that's a factor that you have to include in terms of what LSU's putting together. I like what they've done at wide receiver. I think they've done a nice job reloading there with getting Jace Brown in from K-State, who I think has a chance to be really productive there. Also, Ty Benefield, the safety from Boise State, I viewed as really one of the best safeties in the portal, a guy that had a bunch of visits lined up, but LSU was able to get him locked in. I think interested to see where quarterback ends up. And obviously, They've had some big name players move on. They've had a lot of offensive linemen move on. They've had Caden Durham move on. So they've got a lot of players to replace here. I'm sure part of that is wanting to get guys from Ole Miss, and part of it is wanting to be competitive for the best players in the portal. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting roster construction, I think, for LSU in year one.
You talked about Brendan Sorsby's market, who also I think was maybe in conversations or representatives in conversations with LSU. Sam Levitt has been all around, taking a few visits. What does the quarterback market now mean for quarterbacks who are not leaving their schools for, the portal, who are better than all of these guys making $4, $5, $6 million, whatever? Like, is the number, like, you obviously are not in these conversations, you're not in these negotiations, but like Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza have eligibility left. They have not declared. Yeah. Julian Sayin has eligibility left. Are they going to ask for $7-8 million? Like, what is like, it sounds like a comical number, but like, if we're setting the market is the market. Right. Like, what are the numbers for guys who are better and playing for rich programs who have money and would love to keep them happy?
It's a great question. And like, I'll give you an example. If you're Malachi Toney, how much money are you asking for this offseason?
Yeah.
You're asking for the moon, right?
Yeah. Of course.
You're better than all these guys.
Marcel Reed is better than Brendan Sorsby. Like, he is. So
if you have no intention of transferring, your agent is still going to them and saying, we want $4 million, right? If you're
right.
And some schools might say, like, tough.
Yeah.
If you got that offer, you got to hit the portal. You can't turn that down. Some of those you mentioned are in tough spots right now. Again, it's Thursday, so things have probably changed since this is published.
Yes.
But, that is part of this, is like, and that's the thing that is a frustration, I'm sure, for fans and certainly for coaches, is you don't have to enter the transfer portal to get offers. You don't have to enter the transfer portal to get a raise. Like, you can, there's just always the ominous threat of it. And so, and then if, we saw this last year with the Nico deal to some extent of like, when you see, oh man, Bryce Underwood got this and John Mateer got this, all these other guys made these moves, at some point, then someone in your camp is going to be like, wait a minute, like, shouldn't we be making $3-4 million then? Right. Like, what's going on here? So yeah, that's even at for the guys who have zero intention of playing anywhere else next year. Yeah, their reps are going to say, like, come on now, we got to, just like with coaches, right? Like, you're going to go and say, hey, we should be getting paid like these other guys.
All right, Max. What happened with Damon Williams, and what is the reaction behind the scenes with respect to the power brokers, the agents, other players to the Damon Williams news?
Now, see, I think this segment might age poorly.
Yes.
Let's tread lightly on this.
What do we know so far that's informing what you have seen? Yeah.
I would say, you've seen, since the portal's open on January 2nd, there's been names that have popped up in the portal that you say, like, oh, wow, I didn't maybe totally see that come in. That wasn't announced yet or whatever. Damon Williams was like a whoa to me. Like, that was like there was not rumors. There was not speculation. And, I did a piece a week or two ago, like, on the 26 quarterbacks to watch ahead of the portal opening. Damon Williams, like, never crossed my mind as a guy that, would be on the move. Partially because he signed a new deal with Washington, and that deal was for over $4 million, like top of the market in the Big Ten for sure.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, it's a good offer. He did not get lowballed by Washington. We saw this a year ago with Xavier Lucas, the defensive back at Wisconsin, who re-signed with Wisconsin. And then I believe he went on winter break, went home for the holidays, came back and was like, actually, I'm going to go to Miami. And they were like, no, you're not. And they refused to put his name in the transfer portal. And, his lawyer, Darren Heitner, was able to maneuver it where it's like, okay, well, we're just going to treat this like a student and we're going to withdraw from the university and we're just going to go enroll at the University of Miami. And that's the way because you can operate outside of the portal. And that's, this is an issue. It was an issue last year. And now it's a way more high profile player where the Big Ten and the NCAA and everybody, the powers are like, whoa, we have to actually stand up to this one. Like we actually have to back the school on this and treat these things as enforceable. And players can't just rip those up. And so, the terms of the deal that he signed is that he can't enter the portal and that they retain his NIL rights and all that. And so it's going to be messy. And I think hopefully Damon Williams knew this when he posted this on Instagram, but that one is messy.
What are other players thinking upon seeing this? Do you think that this prompts any other guys who maybe re-up with their current school to think outside the box a little bit and wonder if the market is still out there for them, even though maybe they're supposedly signed on with their current school for another year?
This is the thing that I'm a little bit fearful of is a few months from now, because the reality is coaches wanted to eliminate the spring transfer portal, but at the end of the day, they also really enjoyed the benefit of going through spring practice and saying, okay, we need a few more pieces.
Right.
I hope that we are not getting to this in April where, and if you had to guess today, I think it'll probably happen in somewhere of someone saying, okay, well, I want to transfer in April. I just do. I have to transfer. Here's my reasons. Probably getting offered more money from somebody else. So let's file a lawsuit and let's say they shouldn't have taken away the spring portal from us. And let's get, I think that's the thing that you kind of worry about down the road here is we're moving to one portal and it's 14 days. It's like, okay, sure. That's the plan. But, obviously the track record here on these court cases is not going great in terms of stabilizing things. And so you wonder about that a little bit. And, part of that is going to be because things are set up this way. There's going to be guys who are brought into a program and go through spring practice. And it's like, well, wait, you told me I was going to come in and be the starter and then now I'm not the starter. So why would I stay here this year? Right. I think you're just going to have those situations, and it's the way it's set up right now is very beneficial to the coaches, and it will be in the off season and through spring practice. And so then I think inevitably you're just going to have those issues, and the spring portal has been eliminated, but some people are going to want to make moves and maybe make moves outside of the portal.
Max, something that our friend Pete Sampson tweeted out, and again, we are recording this, full disclaimer, on Thursday morning. But as of Wednesday evening, he noted that Ohio State, Georgia, and Oregon all had one transfer apiece. Notre Dame, BYU, and Miami all had a big old goose egg, none. Does it surprise you at all to see what those programs, just using those as an example, maybe they're not the only ones, but does it surprise you to see relative inactivity from any of those schools? And how would you grade what they are doing now?
Public inactivity, to be
public
clear.
Inactivity, correct. Important disclaimer. How would you grade what we have seen publicly from them? How would you add and maybe any context from what you've heard privately about what those schools are working towards?
Part of that is, you are hosting guys on visits and they're going elsewhere. I mean, that plays into this, right? I mean, everybody's trying to get these players on campus as fast as humanly possible. The thing that's interesting as we go through this cycle is I think a year or two ago, you would still talk to GMs at certain schools and they say man, we're not trying to live in the portal. We're only going to try and take 5 to 10 players. Right. And I think one thing that's just really changed throughout the sport now is that, especially last year, we have normalized that you're going to take 20 to 25 to 30 to, in the case of Oklahoma State, and some of these schools, 50 or 60 transfers, right? And so I think part of that is you can philosophically say we don't need that much. We don't want to live in the portal. We love our high school recruits. Next man up. We're a developmental program. I think that's where you're gonna have a little bit of that tension because fans want to see fireworks And some of these programs, it's like, well, we got like maybe 2 positional needs, and I guess we'll replace guys if we lose guys, but maybe we're not going to lose a lot of guys. Part of this is based on draft decisions, right? And so you have to get past the draft deadline to kind of know what you still need to some degree. So I get that is, there's going to be some programs that are like proud of that, and they're like, we're not going to do the portal that much. But again, no spring portal means you have to do it all now, and you have to get your rosters right for 26. And so if you're inactive right now, or if you're having a lot of attrition, I think you have to be pretty responsive right now and go get the guys. I don't know how much you guys do like fantasy football drafts, stuff like that, but like I've done auction drafts. I'm not very good at auction drafts. Mm-hmm. I do think there's a little bit of a thing of like, if your strategy is to sort of like sit out and wait for good value and stuff, you're gonna like get a pretty bad team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I've tried that does not
before.
Work.
Right. I've tried that angle before, and you're like, I have so much money left. It's like, you don't have any players though. So that's going to be a problem when it's time to go get the players you think that you're going to go get. And so I wonder about that a little bit, especially there's some of these programs that, again, this is where we're seeing things level out a little bit across the country in terms of the spread of where players are going, the distribution of talent. There's some of these programs like Texas for sure, and Georgia, and a few of them, where Alabama, where it's like, this is what we're willing to pay you. If you're asking for more than that, then peace. And good players are leaving those programs, and you say, well, wait, they have all these resources and all this money, and they can afford everybody, and they can go get anybody they want. It's like, yeah, but everybody is having to make these decisions within a budget and within a cap, even if you don't believe in the cap, of what you're willing to pay for someone versus going to get somebody else. And so, if you're like the program that is like kind of having a lot of attrition because you're not willing to pay your backups or pay your returning guys, it's going to be expensive to go get replacements, and you have to go get them right now. You can't really sit back and kind of see how things play out.
It's also, and I don't know if this is more of a comment than a question, but like Ty listed off, I guess it was Pete's teams that he listed, but he listed off teams that have been super successful. So Ohio State, Miami, Oregon, BYU, Notre Dame, schools like that. And so when you are as successful as those teams are, either playoff or playoff-ish, you probably have a lot of good players. And you probably have a lot of players who improved this year. And you probably have a lot of players who have agents that said yesterday's price is not today's price. And so the retention involved in a lot of those programs, if they're not losing a bunch, to the NFL or graduation like Indiana, and, Indiana's obviously, and Texas Tech obviously has made a decision that they're going to be very portal heavy. And so there's just going to be a lot of turnover. I imagine that has to play a role, that these schools, and you've sort of talked about this already, they're spending on retention. They don't necessarily want to bring in players via the portal who are going to piss off active contributing players that they're being recruited over via the portal. And they can, I think in some of these instances, and this was highlighted by Ohio State last year, can afford to be choosy. That like, sure, if Caleb Downs enters, we'll make a move. But otherwise, like, we're pretty happy with where we are. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes. And to your point, retention is very expensive, and it's more expensive this offseason than last year. And I think, even last year I would talk to GMs who were like, we would offer a guy $100,000 and they'd be like offended, right? Like, just the bar of like, you're returning, we like you. The baseline price of that keeps going up, right? And so I think that is a challenge everyone's dealing with. I remember last year, Florida keeps Billy Napier, and the spin at the time is like, well, we're not going to pay the buyout. We're going to invest in the portal. We're going to invest in the roster, right? Florida went out and got 5 or 6 transfers out of the portal. And that's because the freshman class was really expensive, and because Caleb Banks is really expensive, and because DJ, taking care of the guys that are on your roster costs you a lot of money. And then you're sort of like, wait, what do we have left? We can't get that much. And so, that's part of that. I think that's going to be one of the challenges now, as much as it's great to be at a spot where, you're recruiting blue chip top 10 recruiting classes every single year. Those guys are expensive to come in the door, and then you have to keep paying them more every year, whether they're contributing or not. And some of these places, you're sort of like, wait, if you step back and think about it, how much am I paying this kid? How much have I invested in this kid before he has started a game for us? Like, that's a tough proposition. And it's part of it is why you're willing to let backups walk, let them move on and go get paid more by somebody else, and go get, a G5 player who maybe costs less, or maybe go find a replacement in the portal, because there are endless replacements in the portal.
What has the market been like for Sam Levitt and Dylan Raiola? These guys are big names with big public injuries that they suffered this season. And, you know, they have, I think both of these both of these guys played, I think 2, 3, 4 high schools each, right? What is the market like? They keep making visits, or they keep not committing? Like, what is the view in the market for these two, like, very high profile guys?
I'm really glad that you asked that question, Dan, because since this is, as we've joked, is like maybe not going to age well, I want to just put this, I want to pose this to you now.
Okay.
And you've got to make the decision now. Okay. So we're almost like putting this in the vault here.
Yeah.
This is a no crying from the yacht situation, right? But if you're Oregon, Dan, would you take Sam Levitt or Dylan Raiola?
I would be interested in Sam Levitt. He's local. He's led a team to a playoff. And most importantly, in terms of his connection to Oregon, he played for Kenny Dillingham, and there are still Kenny Dillingham fingerprints on the Oregon offense, which is why I think his name has come up with Oregon. I think his injury was pretty serious. I don't even know if he's going to be playing spring ball.
Yep. Yep.
I don't think I would love Oregon quarterback Dylan Raiola. I just have not been a fan of what I know. You're much more local to his situation or former situation. And I felt that way about Bo Nix. And so, you know, raise my hand. I've been wrong before about guys that I didn't think were going to pan out for Oregon. But Sam Levitt feels like more of a fit, though, you know, you hear reports about like their personalities and the sort of cloud around them. And you're just like, I don't know about that. So I don't know. That's why I was asking you, because I know both of the, you know, like it seemed the reports that Raiola's camp is interested in Oregon, not clear if the feeling was mutual. And then Sam Levitt, obviously being from the state and having the connection via Kenny Dillingham, is interesting to me. But I don't know. He's taking a bunch of visits and not committing.
That's right. It's been interesting to see. It's been very quiet on the Dylan Raiola front. I think certainly his dream scenario is getting to be the next quarterback at Oregon, and obviously the track record they've had there under Dan Lanning speaks for itself. It's you know, it's obvious why he would want to be the quarterback at Oregon. And I think for Sam Levitt, you know, the reason I asked you the question is because you talking to personnel people, talking to agents, a lot of people say like, I think Dylan Raiola is going there. And some people say like, I think Sam Levitt will end up there. And so it feels like it's a little, I don't think it's 50-50, but it feels very unclear at the moment. And as of taping this right now, the big mystery is still Miami. We don't know what Miami's going to do. There was a lot of rumors about Lenora Sellers being the guy for Miami. There was rumors about CJ Bailey being the guy for Miami. Maybe they'll circle back on CJ Bailey or one of these guys. Maybe Miami has a guy lined up who's not even in the portal, and we're all going to be blown away. Maybe Miami goes after Ty Simpson, who already declared for the draft. Like, we just don't know what the move is there. Again, part of it is like their season's not over and they're working through this. I think that factors in a little bit. If you told me Sam Levitt's going to be the guy at Miami, I'd be like, okay, I could totally see that. Like that would make sense for them. I think for Raiola, you're not seeing him take a bunch of other visits. So I don't know if he feels like very confident that he is going to be the guy at Oregon, or maybe the word's just not getting out about where he's going. But, you know, I think that it was an interesting year for him. You talk to some people there who feel like, you know, we think he could still be a first round guy. Like the natural talent is all there. You know, the way he can handle stuff pre-snap is like pretty high level for a college kid, for a college sophomore. You know, you've got 2 years of starting experience. Yes, the injury set him back there, but I think a very motivated Dylan Raiola who's like in great shape and he's healthy and he's like really confident and he's got a great supporting cast. Like, I think he can be really productive. You got to remember, Bo Nix was a questionable take at the time, and Dante Moore did not have a good year at UCLA. He did his freshman year and got benched. And so, you know, they're not afraid to like take the guy where like we see the talent regardless of, you know, the resume so far. Levitt would be a lot of fun to watch. I covered that Texas-Arizona State game, the Peach Bowl last year. And as much as Scadaboo was insane, right? watching Levitt run away from Texas players, I was like, this guy's different. Like, this guy is pretty special, and he was only a redshirt freshman, and he wins a Big 12 title as a redshirt freshman. Two guys like I'd be very comfortable betting on, and yes, it's a very expensive bet, but like, yeah, those two, and then you left one out there and we'll see what the move is. This guy is taking a ton of visits. Is DJ Lagway?
Yeah,
who a year ago we were like, going into August, we were like, he could be a top 10 quarterback in the country.
Let me ask you this, okay? And maybe I am showing my age a little bit in asking this question, but we talk about it all the time with coaches who jump around a lot. 1 year here, 1 year there. My favorite joke is Ted Roof, who's been 1 year everywhere before moving on. But we are starting to see this now.
He got hired again, didn't he?
He did.
I just thought.
Oh, yeah. No,
BC, I want to say.
Boston College, yeah. So right off BC for next year on defense. But we're now starting to have this same conversation about players who jump around. 1 year here, portal. 1 year there, portal, right? TJ Finley, I think, is still in the portal. He's going to be in the portal in perpetuity. But is there any trepidation from any of the GMs, any of the agencies that you speak with about the players that are one and done seemingly every year? Are they viewing that as any kind of judge of character for those guys, that they're just kind of jumping from place to place to get more money? Or is it just sort of written off as a sign of the times, and this is where we're at in college football?
Yeah, things are flying like so fast every day in terms of commitments, in terms of new entries and stuff, that like sometimes you just see these things on Twitter and you're just like, I missed that. Like,
yeah.
Okay, wow. So Malachi Nelson from UTEP is back in the transfer portal. That's another one. Jaden Rashada is back in the transfer portal, and we all remember the Jaden Rashada saga at his various schools. It happens a lot at the quarterback position for sure. But that's something that has been striking to me when you look at the names that are popping up in the portal every day, is like, I'm seeing names of guys that are absolutely going to their fourth school in 4 or 5 years. And I think that is something that has changed considerably. Past couple, a few years ago, you guys remember, like they were trying to uphold a one-time transfer rule where you can make a move one time and you can make that move whenever you want. But then you have to be a grad transfer to transfer again. And you watch the entries just pop up every day and populate in the portal right now. I'm not seeing a lot of grad transfers. Like, I think the percentage of players entering the portal who are grad transfers who have their degree, so far it looks like it's down to me. I think the first couple of days it was like 16%, and that was a big cut from a year ago. That's concerning. Like, I think if you're an administrator or coach, like, you don't love seeing that trend. And yeah, like I said, I'm seeing guys pop up in the portal for a third or a fourth time. And is that it's not all about money. Part of that is just like, you keep going places and you can't get on the field, or you are getting on the field and you are not getting what you think you deserve. And so I think that's like an overarching thing that is, it's just, I don't want to do the whole, like, it's a generational thing or whatever like that. The rules create the opportunity,
sure, right?
And so the rules are, they couldn't enforce a one-time transfer rule. So now there's unlimited transfers. And so a guy who, might show up at a place here. You could have freshmen who are at a school for a week, like Julian Sand was, and like go back in the portal, like, oh, okay, whoops, pick a new school. That can happen as soon as you get to college, and especially the quarterback position. In the past, you would say after 2 years they're either playing or they're leaving. Now we're seeing a ton of freshmen in this cycle leave after 1 year as a backup, 1 year of redshirting. Again, it's not just money making them do that. It's just everybody wants to play. They want to get theirs. And if they don't see the path to playing time, there's really nothing stopping anyone from entering the portal.
I have sort of another follow-on question to that. And obviously the tone of these types of questions, it stems from both Dan and I being almost exasperated at how the portal has exploded, how college football has changed in such a very short period of time. For those of us who have watched this sport our entire lives, is obviously very new. We cover it, we have to, but it's different, right? We have to digest it ourselves. How many of the guys that you talk to on the personnel side of this are just maniacally happy? Maniacally looking at the portal, sort of cracking their knuckles, writing out checks, putting them in manila envelopes, meeting in dark alleys, those types of things. How many guys on a percentage basis are just looking at this and salivating at the pure opportunity that this transfer portal presents their program?
Gosh, the the only one who comes to mind is James Blanchard at Texas Tech. That's the only one that comes to mind that is like,
life is
okay,
good.
Here we go.
Time to cook. Sleeves, right? And he's ready to go.
Time to cook. And everybody else is just getting killed out here. Everyone else is just like, they're exhausted. And I was talking to one last night who was who had just made a move to a new school. And they said, we've dealt with volume before. We've dealt with having to take a lot of transfers at one time. Never dealt with the combination of volume and the money before, and a lot of money. And so that is the thing that is, man, there's a ton of great players out here. We can go upgrade our roster. That no one's sitting here being like, man, I don't know if the portal is as good as I thought it would be. Like, no, there's a ton of good players out there.
Right.
It is the pace of this. It is the cost of this. It is the execution of offer to visit to signing to sign contract, getting the actual deal done. It's pretty challenging right now. It's exciting. It's exciting to follow, but behind the scenes, in terms of like pulling it off, it's tough. And I want to say, like, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I think when you're in the daily coverage of it and you're just trying to keep up with what's next, all this stuff, it reminds me a little bit of when I was covering conference realignment, where you'd be so caught up in the next update and the next thing that was happening. And it's tough to step back and be like, yeah, but this is bad though, right? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes when you're in it and you're covering it, I'm not a column writer, right? Like, you're sticking to the news and the facts. It's tough when you're in the shit like this to be like, hold on, like, man, this is, I don't know if these are good developments, some of these things that are happening. So I appreciate you mentioning that, because as much as that's like my role and my passion, and I like covering this stuff, there are definitely things going on, and you talk to people who are very exasperated by all of this and who are asking, like, what is this going to be next year? Like, that's part of the, like, we just don't know how is this even going to work next year? Like, the rules change every year, the setup change every year. And the more the rules change, it almost feels like the worse it gets. It's not, or maybe rules don't change, but the trajectory of this is getting worse, not getting like better and more.
Yeah, it's the Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park thing. Like, just because you can, does that mean that you should?
Scientists were,
yeah, right. So we constantly have this conversation, and even if we're not talking about it on the show, we're talking about it amongst ourselves, just wondering, what does this all mean? Not necessarily saying that the players shouldn't have the right to earn from their likeness or to go to a new school or anything. I think fundamentally we probably all agree on those points, but on some level they got to brain this thing in. It doesn't seem sustainable long term.
And there's just I can totally appreciate from the fan standpoint of this, while it's exciting to follow who your team might be picking up this week and next week. I totally also understand the standpoint of like, Corey Parrish is leaving. Like, this freaking sucks. No. Like, this is, right. I bought my kid the jersey. Like, what is, like, how can we not keep a guy at a school for 3 or 4 years, right? Like, you can go down. I mean, obviously the group of 5 level, there's just no stability year to year. Anybody who gets good is gone. Right. And I think that is a thing that is just very frustrating. If you're an Iowa State fan right now, if you're a North Texas fan right now, you're like, man, this is the reality of the sport. It's not surprising that it's happening. It's completely logical. Doesn't mean I have to sit here and be like, this is good.
Right.
No.
It's one of the interesting things is the portal and recruiting, and I guess to a certain extent coaching hire season. It's an interesting like tea leaf thermometer of a program's health, right? That you're like, this program's losing a lot of like key dudes. I don't know if this is like a long-term healthy situation for so-and-so coach, so-and-so program, or they seem to be attracting a lot of like quality guys. This team might win for the next 2 or 3 years. When you look at what's happened early on in this portal cycle, again, recording Thursday morning, we got another, 7 days, something, I don't know.
Should I check my phone? Should I see
check
like,
your phone? We got 8 days left. It's through the 16th, I believe, as we're recording this.
Okay, Malik blocked into LSU. That's a good one for LSU. Raleek Brown to Texas.
Oh,
Texas
nice.
needed a running back.
They're back. I like this live phone looking.
All right.
Okay.
I probably missed a lot. There's probably a lot more. Okay, go ahead.
What do you remember those scientists that would look at like the waste product in septic tanks to see like how diseases have spread in dorm rooms and stuff like that? So if you're that scientist, putting the petri dish of the transfer portal season under the microscope, like, where are things looking up for, programs, and who are you kind of like, oh, I'm kind of worried that like things aren't going super well based on the ins and outs of players in this season?
That's one element of this that's always been curious to me is like in the past there was a limit to how many guys you could sign in a whole year, and there's obviously a roster limit. There is no limit to how many players you could lose. There's no like, okay, well, we've crossed this threshold, and so nobody else is going to leave. And so you see some of these things play out where, like, for example, like, not to single them out, like, well, okay, Texas has had a bunch of good players leave the program, right? Yes. And Parker Livingston's going to Oklahoma, which you would say during the season, you'd be like, that's insane. Like,
right.
No, they would never let that happen. Or you have, Trey Wisner's going to Florida State, and Trey Wisner freaking won them the A&M game, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's good players walking out, and part of it is just the economics of it and stuff. And at a certain point, from a fan side, I need to see someone else come in and replace them. I need to see stars coming in. Otherwise, I'm like, what are we doing? And so you see like Colorado's freshman class, like a lot of really like good players leaving and having great opportunities to go somewhere else. It doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, in the past, I would say it's a little bit more damning of like, oh man, they got some cultural problems. Like what's going on here? It's not quite that anymore, because it's part of it is just the money, and it's just the like, dude, you didn't play this year. Like, we're not going to pay you that much money. Like,
right.
If you got to go, you got to go. But like, we'll get somebody else. But like, we cannot do this. That's a lot of it, right? That's like, let's not pretend it's anything else. That is what is dominating it now. On the flip side of it, though, Dan, I would say, as we are watching Indiana right now, and Ole Miss and Texas Tech do what they're doing in the transfer portal, I think you see that Indiana is a perfect example where year one, it was like, man, they brought all these JMU guys. They kept like some good players from the Tom Allen era. They really got it right. Then they go build a great portal class. They go out and get exactly what they need, not just the Heisman winner, but players all over the field who are making them better, who are upgrading their their starting lineup. This year, you're going to go win a battle for Nick Marsh. You're going to go get Josh Hoover lined up. Like, Josh Hoover's not taking any other visits. Josh Hoover wants to go to Indiana. You're going to get one of the best pass rushers in the portal from K-State. Like, you are going out and getting, Turbo Richard from Boston College, and the list is growing. I look at some of those, Dan, and I wonder, can some of these programs build on this momentum, stack enough portal classes that, like, can one of them actually, like, be a Clemson and actually be around for 5 years, like, right, or 10 years? And actually, that's the one where that's the thing you're watching play out live that is really interesting to me. Like, obviously Texas Tech is invested in being one of those programs and competing at the highest level for as long as they can, for an indefinite period of time. Like, Texas Tech is fully all in on this stuff. Indiana is too. Ole Miss, the way that Pete Golding has always been a great recruiter at Ole Miss, and they're doing a killer job in the portal. They're doing a killer job with retention. I'm just fascinated to see as we move into next year, and we, the portal changes every year and the money goes up and all that kind of stuff. Can some of these programs sustain it? And yes, they're not going to win national championships every year, obviously, and blue chip ratio still matters, and the great programs will still be the great programs. But I think it's possible that some of these can really sustain this. That as long as Cignetti's at Indiana, I think Indiana can stay here. Does that make sense?
As long as you don't have a terrible
could you see
class,
that, or
it does make sense.
Do you think this is just kind of fleeting, and like the rosters are so year to year that it's hard to stay at this level?
It is hard to stay at this level. I think a lot of people full-heartedly believe Curt Cignetti is an excellent coach, and so he and his staff will get the most out of players who come in. But as we've seen with, Florida State's an example, and maybe Mike Norvell's not a great coach. I don't think that's a controversial statement to make. If you miss on a class and you are recruiting over the high school recruits, you're going to lose your high school recruited players and have a bad portal class, and then suddenly you're left with a super thin roster of quality. And so that sort of strategy is banking on continued coaching excellence and absolutely nailing every portal class and being lucky with injuries, which is not necessarily an every year thing to me.
And then as Lanning is going through now, then if you're going to have sustained success, then your coordinators are going to become head coaches, and your coaches are going to move up in the world. And so how do you take the magic of this and keep it going with different people. And I think that's a really hard thing too. And that hasn't really happened yet for Curt Cignetti, as good as his coordinators are. And they're some of the best in the country. So yeah, I think that certainly plays into it too. But yeah, I don't know. I'm like, back in November, it's sort of like, okay, well, yeah, LSU is a way better job than Ole Miss. Like, who could blame him and all that kind of stuff. I think this whole ordeal has galvanized everybody in Oxford of like, okay, we need to go out and show like we are all in. We need to bring all these players back. We need to put together a killer portal class.
Totally.
Yeah, some of these like you got to seize the moment here and go get a great class. And you're right, Dan. There's also, as this is going on right now, and it's very fast and furious. And like I keep a spreadsheet of like where every FBS scholarship player is transferring to. My spreadsheet is in shambles. Like it would take me days to update it with who's in the portal and who's going where. Like hopefully we'll catch up at some point. But there are definitely going to be some programs right now who are either going to put together portal classes with the wrong players, or they're going to miss on the right players. And like, it's going to get them fired here a year from now because they didn't, because that's just how, it's just like college basketball, right? Like it's a different team every year. And if you get it wrong, like we saw, at Oklahoma State and a few other programs this year, like if you get it wrong, like you could be cooked.
And is the money going to double down, right? That if you screw up a portal class, is all of a sudden the money going to get a little bit shy about giving you the same number that you were getting the past couple years?
Yeah, it's completely held against you if it's like,
totally.
And the important people who ultimately end up having a say, and if you get hired or fired, are like, man, I've spent a lot of money on this team.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we terrible? I think that's there's absolutely going to be, especially as we go, as we raise up the profile of these GMs and we raise their pay and stuff. That's going to come with us, just like in the NFL. There's going to be accountability to, you went out and did all this and spent all this money, and we went 6-6. Like, we got to make some changes here.
It's also really upset the balance of the coaching carousel, just from the standpoint of, in the year of our Lord 2008, if the conversation were a really successful coach at Indiana potentially being in the mix for a job at Penn State, potentially being in the mix for a job, let's say at Michigan, you name it, nobody on earth would have assumed that guy would have stayed at Indiana. But now, given the state of affairs here, proof of concept, Curt Cignetti has done it. We have seen other coaches at smaller places do it as well. Texas Tech, I mean, I don't say smaller place in any derogatory sense, but they've got the money. They are obviously proving that they can do it quickly. They can turn things around quickly, given the state of affairs, again, around the sport. That conversation has changed now. And I know Dan and I had that conversation when we were talking about this most recent coaching cycle. Guys are more apt to stay where they're at if they've got the money, if they've proven they can do it. Why go elsewhere? What's the point? You can just build it where you're at if you've got the money to support it.
100%. I went and visited Texas Tech when they were 6-0 and went to Lubbock for a few days. And I was talking with Joey McGuire as a lot of these things. I think right as I was going there to visit them, I think James Franklin had just been fired like the day before. And so, of course, those guys were close with Matt Rule, and they're like, man, what's going to happen with that job and all that? And Joey McGuire is like, hey, just remember, do not put my name on any of these lists. I'm going to die here. Like, this is the job. Yeah. This is the job I always wanted. And, if Texas or A&M or Oklahoma opens up, like, I'm freaking not going there. And I think that's something that 100% 10 years ago, you'd be crazy not to. And now it's every campus is a little bit different in terms of how they're attacking this stuff. And if you feel like the coaches that feel like they have the alignment right, and I know that's how Cignetti views it at Indiana, where the president, the AD on down, the donor class, if you get this all lined up, not only can you be very successful today and tomorrow, but you don't want to leave. Those guys don't want to leave, and they, everybody gets taken care of and everyone's happy. And, I was talking to a coaching agent around that time who said, as they were looking at these jobs that were opening, it used to be like, yeah, what are the facilities like? What's the staff pool? How nice are the waterfalls in the building and all that type of stuff, right? And like, what's the, what are the recruiting advantages and all that kind of stuff? They said now it's just cut and dry. It's like, how much cap room do you have? How are you going to go over the cap? And that's what everybody's trying to deal with right now, is how much room do we have? How are we going to circumvent the rules here and spend more on this team? Who's going to fund that circumvention of going over the cap with who's going to fund the true NIL or whatever we want to call it? And so that is the name of the game now. And so if you're at a place that has it figured out, then you're really happy and you're really advantaged and you're getting great players and you can sustain success. And if you're at a place where it's like a little bit messy or you don't have as much money as you should, or it's, like you want to get out of that place too. And you want to see, you're very envious. I hear that from a lot of people. There's a lot of envy when you look at like Texas Tech and just like, oh man, it's not just like, oh man, I'd love to have a billionaire as my best friend. It's not just that. It's having it all lined up and having it figured out in terms of how to actually pull this off.
All righty, Max, why don't we leave it there? I've got one final question for you. I love to ask this question because it makes people uncomfortable. So don't share too much. I don't want to put you in a bad spot. But how many rumors are you sitting on right now that will never see the light of day with regard to the portal?
Oh, man. And give us 17 of them.
Oh, my God. I heard a really bad one yesterday. Like, not by bad one, I mean somebody told me about a quarterback who was making a move, and I was floored. And I called Pete Thamel and I said, "Hey, can you talk to their rep? Can you look into this?" And he reached out to their representation, and they said, "Yeah, the reason that he just moved out of his house is because he's moving to a house closer to the facility. He's not entering the transfer portal.
So it was a moving situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'd heard he's moving out of his house. What's that mean? It sounds like he's going in the portal. It sounds like maybe they're going to replace him. No, he was just trying to get a house closer to off-season workouts and all that. Now we'll see. Maybe that I'll let you guys know if that player enters the portal here in the next 4 days.
Whose facility though?
Yeah.
Who's right? But there's even as like the quarterback market is so well established and we know who's out there and we know who everybody's fighting over. Who knows? There's always the possibility that, some quarterback on a playoff team is like, well, I guess I could go make $6 million at Miami. Maybe I'll go do that. You know what I mean? I think that's, I'd also say like right now, like if I tweeted every dollar figure that was like texted to me by somebody, man, my batting average would be horrible, honestly, because all this stuff is just so hard to prove.
Right.
It really is. Like it's so hard. Nobody. I wish to those listening, please send me your PDFs, send me your contracts, show me these dollar figures, please. Nobody DMs me contracts and PDFs. I would love to see the real numbers on these things. For so much you talk to GMs and agents and it's all speculation and it's inflated or it's too high or it's too low. Yeah, that's a hard thing to really nail down at this time of year, but you hear a lot.
Why don't we leave it there? Again, his name is Max Olson. You can find his fine work over at ESPN.com. Max, best of luck to you, not just with your newborn, but with your sleeping cycle right now amid all of this portal madness. We will definitely catch up with you at some point soon on the flip side. Take care.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, there you go. Max Olson.
The best.
ESPN.com. Very much in the weeds with all things transfer portal. I do not envy the position he is in. I say that not because there's not enough content, but just because there is so much content. It is a fire hose that Max is drinking out of right now. And it's not just Max, it's everybody who covers the transfer portal. That is a really, really tough spot to be in right now. So he's doing marvelous work. Go and follow him. Go and check him out. More to come, right? This is only a Sunday episode for us. There's like a whole other week left in this transfer portal business. Lord knows there will be further hijinks as some teams get eliminated as we get a little bit deeper into the month of January. But in terms of the lay of the land right now, that's where things stand.
It's so nice that college football, forget the calendar, Ty. It's so nice that college football, we talk about the sport's biggest product that they sell is hope. But the second most successful product that this sport sells, to me, is anxiety. And so think about whether you root for a team that's still playing at the time of recording. Maybe I can be like, wow, what an Oregon win. Or like, ooh, God, that Oregon loss stung, man. You can get all my reactions in now. But you think about all the ways in which you can build out hope in your brain for your college football team. Think about what now the transfer portal, on top of the coaching carousel season, on top of year-round recruiting, on top of the games itself, on top of hearing about a spring practice or fall camp injury and hoping it's not serious, on top of every single moment in a game, every major third down moment, every field goal before the end of a game, whatever, all the clock decisions, all the fourth down decisions, we now have the anxiety that Ty gets to feel, I get to feel, as people who root for excellent teams, excellent programs. Why isn't my excellent program doing more right now to be more excellent?
I'm feeling it right now. Again, Thursday recording, but Notre Dame, as I said on the episode, big old goose egg.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of transfer portal movement. I like the players on the roster. I feel good about what Marcus Freeman has assembled already. They'll be fine. They're going to be one of the top teams in the country again next year. Would have liked to see a number one receiver by now. I would have felt better about Nick Marsh. Right?
It allows the most spoiled fans to be just a little more spoiled.
That's exactly
what
right.
A great
anyway,
thing.
Look.
Yeah.
Max does a good job. Please go out there and follow and support his work at ESPN.com. We will be back in very short order with another episode. Obviously going to be talking through the College Football Playoff National Championship.
Yes.
Any news that arises between now and then, there is much more to discuss on the college football front here. So do not tune out quite yet. In fact, if you made it this far, hit follow or subscribe. We'd appreciate it.
Yes. Can I ask you a portal-related question to close this out?
Sure. I guess.
Yeah. You guess. Come on. Thanks for the permission.
It's your show too,
Ty.
so yeah.
Let's say you're out in your backyard playing with your dogs, throwing the ball underhand because you still have a bum shoulder. And one of your dogs, skids after a ball, and all of a sudden, oil shoots out of the ground. Okay? Oil, right?
Yeah.
As Eastern PA is known to be the hotbed of crude oil
just
in this
oil
country.
derricks all around here.
Yeah, of course. So let's say you come into hundreds of millions of dollars. Where are you donating that money if you feel passionately about the portal? Are you donating to Notre Dame or Penn State?
I would donate to Penn State.
I think that's the right answer.
Yeah, I couldn't. Notre Dame didn't let me in.
Notre Dame didn't let you in.
Notre Dame waitlisted me. I can root for Notre Dame, but I'm giving my money to Penn State.
I think that's the right answer. I'm glad how quickly you answered that question. Also because occasionally you'll go to a game, you'll go with your friends. It would be cool to sit in a suite, right? The Ty Hildenbrandt suite on the 50-yard line.
Listen to me. There have been plenty of moments throughout the course of my younger life.
Yeah.
When I was like, F Notre Dame.
Sure.
I still root for the team. I want them to do well. But no, I carry that with me. I carry that with me, that rejection letter. It's all right.
Okay.
It's all right. We're allowed to be petty here. I will say this, too.
Yeah.
Regardless of how passionate I am about the transfer portal, there are plenty of other better charities to give your money to.
I 100% disagree. Couldn't disagree more, Ty.
It would be probably a war of words here in the Hildenbrandt residence with me trying to convince my very kind and very charity-minded wife that no, we actually should be giving this money to
Nick
an
Marsh
athletic department. Nick Marsh. That would be a very difficult conversation for me to have personally.
Yeah. Well, look, if you're coming into that kind of money, you can do both, right? You can be your own Cody
I'm just
Campbell.
saying, I'm not sure I would be able to.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I appreciate the honesty. I think that is the right answer, by the way. You went to Penn State. You're from Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have
Penn State.
It
goes to Penn State.
Yeah, agree. Okay, that's it.
Why don't we leave it there? For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for our honored guest today, Max Olson of ESPN. Thank you, as always, for downloading, for listening, for supporting, for tuning in. Until next time, stay solid.
Peace.